Me tell you this. I've been delivering propane for close to 10 years now, and all that time I honestly believed I'd encountered every flavor of crazy imaginable. Angry customers screaming about prices, dogs slipping their leashes, cracked driveways. Folks try to hand me expired coupons like they were gold. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepare me for the morning I crossed paths with Heather Collins. That woman didn't just try to wreck my shift. She turned a standard, boring delivery into an all-out battlefield. It was a Thursday morning in early September, already hot enough that my shirt was glued to my back before 9 a.m. I was halfway through my route in Willow Creek Estates, a quiet little HOA neighborhood just outside Raleigh, North Carolina. The kind of place with matching mailboxes, razor-sharp hedges, and more security cameras than casino floor. Name's Ethan Brooks, by the way. I work for Carolina Fuel Services. Been doing this for 8 years now. Same truck, same route, same customers, same streets on repeat. Predictable, comfortable, safe, or at least that's what it used to be. I turned onto Maplewood Drive and slowed to a stop in front of Mrs. Alvarez's house. Sweet older lady. Always left a glass of iced tea on the porch for me. And that's when I saw her, standing directly in front of my truck. Arms crossed, feet planted, blocking my bumper like she was guarding a medieval fortress. Blonde bob haircut, designer sunglasses, spotless blazer in 90-degree heat, and a thick binder clutched her chest like it was scripture. I remember thinking, oh no, not one of these. She didn't wave, didn't smile, didn't step aside. She just stared at me like I'd personally insulted her by existing. I rolled my window down. Ma'am, I just need to pull up another 3 feet. She didn't budge. Instead, she leaned forward slightly and said in this sharp, clipped tone, "You're not authorized to park that vehicle here." No good morning. No hello. Straight to judgment. I blinked. I'm making a delivery. 15, maybe 20 minutes, then I'm gone. She opened her binder. I swear it made a sound when it snapped open, like destiny cracking its knuckles. "I am Heather Collins, president of the Willow Creek Estates Homeowners Association," she said, "and you are currently violating Section 8, subsection D of our community bylaws." Of course she knew the exact section. Of course she did. I looked around. Same spot I'd parked for 3 years. Same curb. Same house. Same everything. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I've been delivering here every 6 weeks for years. Nobody's ever had an issue." Her lips tightened. Previous leadership was careless. I am correcting that. Oh, so this was a regime change. Fantastic. She stabbed her finger at the page. "Commercial vehicles over 10,000 pounds are prohibited on residential streets between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. I nodded. Right. But delivery vehicles are exempt. That's standard everywhere. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Just control. Not here. Behind her, through the window, I could see Mrs. Alvarez watching. Nervous. Confused. Her propane tank was down to 12%. She had family coming that weekend. She needed this delivery. I tried again. "Look, I'm just doing my job. She needs fuel. I'll be quick." Heather tilted her head. "Then you should have come earlier or later. I have 30 stops today." Not my concern. That's when she pulled out her phone. "You have 5 minutes to move this vehicle. After that, I'll contact Premier Towing." I laughed. I actually laughed because I thought she had to be bluffing. Who calls a tow truck on a propane delivery? Turns out she does. I watched her thumb hover over the screen, and something inside me snapped. Not anger, more like survival instinct. Because I knew if she towed my truck, I'd lose half my day. Hundreds of dollars. Angry customers. Paperwork. A lecture from my boss. So I made a decision. A dumb one. A brave one. A desperate one. I jumped out of the truck, grabbed my hose, and started hooking up to the tank. Fast focus, careful, because propane isn't something you rush. Behind me, I heard her voice rise. "Yes, this is Heather Collins, HOA president. I need a commercial vehicle removed immediately." I worked like my life depended on it. Connected, checked, locked, Valve open. Flow started. We were officially delivering. Legal. Protected. At least, that's what I thought. 10 minutes later, I heard a diesel engine. Tow truck already. That woman had them on speed dial. The driver climbed out. His name was Mark. I knew him from high school. He looked at me, looked at the hose, looked at Heather, and sighed. Ma'am, he's in the middle of delivery. He wasn't when I called you, she snapped. He's trying to cheat the system. Mark rubbed his forehead. I can't tow that. It's hazardous material. She crossed her arms tighter. So he gets special treatment. No, Mark said. He gets safety treatment. For 15 minutes, I pumped propane while Heather Pace texted, made calls, snapped photos, muttered about fines, violations, and setting precedents. When I finished, disconnected, and packed up, she was already waiting. Now, she said, tow it. Mark looked miserable. I'm sorry, man. I know. He hooked up my truck. $640 later, there went my day. My boss, nearly lost his mind during that delivery. He kept repeating, yeah, that's insane. Welcome to Willow Creek. And that was only the beginning, because over the next 2 weeks, Heather turned that neighborhood into her own personal courtroom. Fines, warnings, towing, threats, people scheduling deliveries at dawn or late at night, missing work, losing sleep, filing complaints, getting absolutely nowhere. She wasn't enforcing rules anymore. She was enforcing power. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was about to be dragged straight into something much bigger than parking. All right, before I keep going, let me pause the story for a second, because this is where it stops being just another crazy HOA lady situation and starts becoming something deeper. What Heather was doing wasn't random, and it definitely wasn't just about parking. Under standard procedure, in most HOAs across the United States, commercial vehicle restrictions exist for one main reason: aesthetics and long-term parking. They're designed to stop residents from turning neighborhood streets into storage lots for work trucks, trailers, or vans that sit there all day, every day. They are not meant to block essential services: mail trucks, garbage trucks, utility crews, fuel deliveries, emergency maintenance. Those are almost always exempt. Why? Because without them, a neighborhood literally cannot function. No heat, no water, no trash pickup, no repairs. Everything falls apart. From a legal standpoint, HOAs can regulate private roads, yes, but they also have a duty not to interfere with basic habitability and public safety. When your rules prevent people from receiving utilities, you're playing with fire, sometimes literally. And when something goes wrong, courts almost always side with the service providers and homeowners, not the HOA, which meant Heather was walking on extremely thin ice. She just didn't know it yet. Now, let's talk psychology for a second, because this is where it gets interesting. This is a classic psychological trap. When someone suddenly gains authority, especially someone who's never really had it before, they sometimes overcompensate. They cling to rules. They memorize bylaws. They enforce everything to the letter, not because they love order, but because they love control. It makes them feel important, respected, untouchable. Heather had only become HOA president 2 months earlier. She was insecure. She wanted to prove she was different from the last board. Stronger, tougher, more professional. So she picked the easiest target: service workers. People who don't live there. People who can't vote her out. Me. And here's the dangerous part. When people like that get challenged, they don't self-reflect. They double down. They escalate. Every time you push back, it becomes personal. Now, it's not about rules anymore. It's about winning. That's the lesson people miss about HOAs. They aren't just about lawns and fences. They're small political systems with power, money, egos. And when the wrong personality gets in charge, a parking rule can turn into a full-blown community crisis, which is exactly what was about to happen, because Heather wasn't done with me, not even close. So after that first tow, after losing half a day's pay, getting chewed out by my boss, and spending 2 weeks waking up before sunrise just to serve Willow Creek residents like some kind of propane vampire, I figured Heather would eventually get bored. She'd move on, find another hill to die on. That's usually how these things go, right? Yeah. No. She escalated. By October, deliveries in Willow Creek felt like military operations. We had spreadsheets, timers, backup routes, group texts. Don't enter before 7:58. Way at the gate. She's outside. Abort. I'm not exaggerating. We were coordinating like spies. All because one woman decided parking was her personal religion. Then came the call from Jake. Jake was my coworker, 24 years old. Still thought everything was funny until that morning. Ethan, man, I'm screwed. What happened? I'm at Station 14. They told me I froze a fire station. Station 14 sat right behind Willow Creek, not inside the HOA. Different property, different jurisdiction. But the only road to reach it ran through the neighborhood, and apparently Heather decided that counted. When I got there, Fire Chief Dan Morris was standing in the lot with his arms crossed, jaw tight, staring at the empty space where Jake's truck had been. That woman called a tow truck on a fuel delivery to a fire station. He said flatly, I didn't know whether to laugh or panic. Probably both, I said. Dan explained it. Jake had pulled in at 9 a.m. and started unloading. 10 minutes later, tow truck. Heather claimed he violated through traffic commercial restrictions, meaning she was now blocking emergency infrastructure over parking. And here's the thing. Fire chiefs don't play politics. They play safety. If our generators fail, Dan said, people die. No drama. No exaggeration. Just facts. He called the city. The fire marshal got involved. Then the city attorney. And suddenly Heather's little rule book didn't look so powerful anymore. The next HOA meeting was chaos. Packed room. Standing room only. People angry. People whispering. Phones recording. Heather sat in the middle like a queen on trial. Still confident. Still smiling. Still sure she was right. Dan stood up first. Your restrictions are interfering with emergency services. Heather replied without blinking. Our roads are private. The fire marshal leaned forward. Public safety overrides private governance. That's when I saw it. The crack. Just for a second. Fear. After 2 hours of arguing, the board voted 4-1. Emergency vehicles and fuel deliveries to the station would be exempt. Heather was the lone no. Of course she was. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, Ray called me. The station failed inspection. What? Backup generators shot. Full system replacement needed by Friday. It was Wednesday. No exemption finalized yet. Meaning if I went in, I could get towed again. Ray hesitated. Ethan, I don't want to lose another truck. If their generator fails, I said, we lose lives. Silence. Then, do what you think is right. Thursday, 7:20 a.m. I drove in before restrictions kicked in. Perfect plan. We worked fast. Removed the old tank. Installed the new one. Connected lines. Check pressure by 8:10. Halfway done, then I heard tires. White SUV. Heather. She stepped out like she was entering a battlefield. Phone in hand. Mr. Brooks, you are in violation. I'm on station property. You drove through Willow Creek. She dialed again. Chief Morris stepped in front of her. You need to leave. I'm enforcing rules. You're trespassing. She didn't move. Tow truck. 15 minutes out. My hand was shaking, not fear, adrenaline. 30 minutes of work left. No shortcuts. One mistake, and we had a bomb. The chief called the police. Officer Ramirez arrived. Listened, looked, thought, then asked me, how long? 20 minutes. He nodded. Finish. When the tow truck arrived, it stopped outside the gate, saw the cruiser, and didn't even try. Smart man. At 9:14 a.m., the system tested. Certified. Operational. Backup power restored. I packed up and drove out with a police escort. Heather sat in her SUV, furious, defeated, powerless. And the community had seen everything. The fire station. The chaos. The absurdity. They were done. Frank, one of the residents, organized a petition. 68 signatures. Special meeting. Vote. 3 weeks later at the community center. Overflow crowd. 2 presentations. Heather talked property values. Slippery slopes, fear. Frank talked miswork. Disrupted lives, common sense reality. Ballots counted. 147 to 91. Amendment passed. Delivery vehicles allowed. Normal hours restored. Game over. Or so we thought. Because a month later, a woman named Patricia pulled me aside. Finance committee. Whispered. Money's missing. How much? 60,000. Fake vendors. Fake invoices. Private accounts. All leading back to Heather. Emergency meeting. Audit. Police report. Arrest. Charges. Trial. Conviction. Years. Turns out while she was busy policing parking, she was robbing her neighbor's blind. And just like that, the woman who tried to control everything lost everything. After Heather was arrested, after the court dates, the headlines, the whispered conversations at mailboxes and pool decks, Willow Creek went quiet. Not the awkward kind of quiet, the peaceful kind. The kind that comes when a storm finally passes. Deliveries went back to normal. No more dawn. Missions. No more night routes. No more spreadsheets labeled Operation Avoid Heather. I'd roll in at 10 a.m., do my job, wave to Mrs. Alvarez, grab my iced tea, and head out like it was always meant to be. Simple. Human. Normal. A few months later, Tom Reeves, one of the calmer, level-headed community members, became HOA president. The very first thing he did was post the financial records online. Open access. Full transparency. The second thing he did was rewrite the enforcement guidelines. Right there in bold, underlined, highlighted 3 times. No towing during active service. And that's when it really sank in just how close this neighborhood had come falling apart over one person's obsession with control. Because here's the truth most people don't like to admit. HOAs themselves aren't evil. They're tools. Like fire. Like knives. Like power. In the right hands, they help. In the wrong hands, they hurt everyone. The lesson isn't HOAs are bad. The lesson is that systems without accountability attract the wrong personalities. People who don't want to serve, they want to rule. They don't ask, is this helping? They ask, am I in charge? And once that mindset takes over, empathy disappears. Context disappears. Common sense disappears. From a psychological standpoint, Heather fit the pattern perfectly. Over-identification with the role, a fragile ego, and a deep fear of losing authority. So every challenge felt like a personal attack. Every compromise felt like weakness. She wasn't protecting property values. She was protecting her self-image. And from a legal perspective, what actually saved Willow Creek wasn't one brave speech. It wasn't me. It wasn't even the fire chief. It was process, petitions, votes, documentation, paper trails, transparency, boring stuff, unsexy stuff. But that's how communities survive. Another lesson people overlook. Service workers are invisible until something breaks. Nobody thinks about propane or water or electricity until it's gone, until it's cold, until it's dark, until it's dangerous. Then suddenly we matter. And I'm not saying that to sound heroic. I'm just a guy with a truck. I didn't wake up wanting to fight a system. I just refused to abandon people who depended on me. That was it. Sometimes that's enough. Looking back, I could have quit. We talked about it. Ray even offered, we'll drop Willow Creek. No more stress. No more losses. But that would have meant leaving seniors, families, and first responders scrambling. It would have meant letting bad rules win by default. And that's something I couldn't live with. Today, when I drive through Willow Creek, it looks boring in the best way possible. Kids riding bikes, dogs barking, Amazon vans double parked, nobody panicking, nobody calling tow trucks. Just life. Heather's old house? Someone else lives there now. Young couple, 2 kids, chalk drawings on the driveway, flowers in the yard. The place feels lighter, like the whole neighborhood finally exhaled. Sometimes people ask me, was it worth it? The stress, the fees, the meetings, the drama? And honestly, yeah, it was, because it proved something important. You don't need to be powerful to make change. You need to be persistent. You need allies. You need facts. And you need to be willing to stay when walking away would be easier. So if you live in an HOA, pay attention. Go to meetings. Read the emails. Ask questions. Because apathy is how control grows. Silence is how bad leadership survives. And if you're a service worker, know your rights. Know the rules. Document everything. Don't let someone's title intimidate you. Respect is mutual, not automatic. I'm curious now. Have you ever dealt with an HOA like this? A power-hungry board member? A ridiculous fine? A rule that made absolutely no sense? Drop your story in the comments. I read them, seriously, because stories like this aren't just entertainment. They're warnings. They're lessons. They're proof that ordinary people can push back. And sometimes, all it takes to change a system is one stubborn guy with a propane truck who refuses to move. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there. And be kind to the people just trying to do their jobs.